This weekend I watched Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure for like the billionth time, but the first time I've ever watched it in full since I have been a high school English teacher. I was a high school English teacher for about 8 years. Before that, I was a college English teacher. I was an adjunct. Adjuncting is a joke. I think the greatest form of protest for those of us who've suffered as adjuncts would be never to take those adjunct jobs anymore. You see an adjunct job, you just that's where they can put the adjunct job because it's not a way in. It's not a way forward. It's a lie. It's a corporate lie. It's a bureaucratic lie. You are an adjunct so that the college doesn't have to give you insurance, doesn't have to take care of you. And I was an adjunct for many years, for a few years. And I can tell you, I was not the best version of my teacher self when I was holding down 7, 8 different jobs in 2 different states. And that was my reality. I used to go from Chicago to Wisconsin to Chicago to Wisconsin, thinking that the adjunct job was the start of something much bigger. But in fact, oh, that is so sad. There's a little pill bottle in the background. I'm that lady now. I'm that woman now. I'm that person now. Pill bottles everywhere. If somebody walked into this house, they'd be like, I don't know, the inhabitant is approximately 76 years old just based on the pill level alone. And if you're watching this and you're 76 and you're thinking to yourself, well, that's presumptive. I don't take any pills. Good. Lucky you. I take all the pills. Adjuncting is not a way into the academy. It is a lie. It is a joke. It is exploitation of labor. I have all the opinions about adjuncting, but I will save those for another conversation. So after I adjuncted, I moved to Milwaukee for a full-time gig. And after I did that, I moved to Arizona to follow my heart. So stupid. Don't fucking follow your heart. Not like that. Don't follow your heart for a person. That's way dumb. For me, it's dumb. It was. I'm trying to simplify these videos, so I'm just like making one real quick in the morning and then editing it apart so that I get my story forward and then I can link it to my blog post that kind of correlates, but not at all. I don't even know what I'm doing here. I don't know why I'm making these videos. Loneliness, desperation, boredom. Bored though, I'm never bored. My ex was always bored. Always bored. I don't remember the last time I've been bored. I haven't been bored since I was a very young child. And even then I had inner resources. Never bored. I'm never bored now. I haven't been bored since probably 1995. That was the last time I was bored. So adjuncting is a joke. I took a full-time job in Milwaukee, which was also its own kind of joke. But I had a wonderful time there. I met students. And the story of my profession has been, I like my students. Because that's what I wanted when I was a kid. I wanted my teachers and professors to like me and know who I was. So I watched Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure for the first time since I've been a high school teacher. And I was a high school teacher when I moved to Arizona, because when I moved to Arizona for love, it was a wonderful experience. It was so stupid. When I moved to Arizona to marry my ex, that worked out well. Not at all. I thought that in the Southwest, little colleges were plentiful the way they are east of the Mississippi River. Not so. I got a job that I thought I was only going to keep for the school year at an arts high school that then became also a middle school. So it was both, up on the mountain where I was living in Arizona. And I loved it. It was transformative for me personally. And as I've said, those 7 years I spent on the mountain in the school were some of the most spectacular of my entire life. They were wonderful. part of why they were wonderful is that I really found that I enjoyed working with teenagers. Middle schoolers, you know, I can do it because I have great empathy for middle schoolers, being that middle school is like the worst fucking time in a human being's development. So I always felt very sorry for middle schoolers. And so I would come to my middle schoolers from a place of, oh my God, I'm so sorry you're going through these years, because you have to go through those years. But ugh, the years of 12, 13, 14, 15 even. If somebody told me we could cure your cancer tomorrow, but in exchange you'd have to go back in time and live 4 lifetimes as a middle schooler, I said no. So I always had great compassion for middle schoolers, but I preferred working with teenagers and with my high schoolers. And high school teaching is vastly different in many ways from teaching at the college level. One is just the responsibility you have to your students. Just when I was a professor or an adjunct, adjunct professor. Such a bullshit. It's such a bullshit. You know what I'm saying? Adjuncting is a joke. But I love teaching, and I love teaching at the high school level, because the public schools in Arizona, even though by and large they are disastrous and they pay really poorly, it was still just a full-time gig, and I was only in one place instead of being in several places, and I had my own classroom, basically. As I said in my last video, I had to share it, but basically I had my own classroom, so I could be a better teacher. And here's the thing about adjuncting too, is that you hire these motherfuckers like me who are exhausted because we're working 10 different fucking jobs. We can fucking pull in change out of my couch to pay the bus fare, and trying to decide, like, do I keep the gas on or do I eat? That was real life as an adjunct. Do I keep the gas on or do I eat? And then I'm supposed to be providing quality education for students who are paying like $25,000 a year to attend these colleges. It's a joke. You're not getting... Listen to me. Listen to me. If you're attending a college that mostly employs adjuncts to teach your classes, you are not getting a caliber education. And it's not because the adjuncts are poor. That's not it at all. It's because the adjuncts are tired. Human beings cannot live a good and strong intellectual life when they are fighting for their basic survival, like deciding, do I pay the gas bill or do I get my groceries? So when I became a high school teacher, I had new responsibilities. And I felt that I had new responsibilities because the kids are so fucking young. High schoolers are just babies. They're babies. I paid attention to my baby's well-being. It wasn't just about assigning papers and grading papers and teaching them how to do MLA citations. It was bigger and deeper, and I loved it for that reason, because I loved getting to be a part of my students' lives. But one thing that I took very seriously as a public school teacher was I had an obligation to my students to recognize when they were struggling in ways that could be helped by like an IEP or a 504. And I also had an obligation to be a mandatory reporter. So if I saw anything funky, or I had reason to believe something bad or funky was going on with my kids, not just funky, not like Lee Dorsey funky, but like, you know, destructive funky, I had to report it to the administration or the popo. I mean, depending on the nature of the concern. I'm watching Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure with Megan last night. And one, I thought, Bill and Ted need an IEP. I was appalled by how cavalier their teacher was in the beginning scene of Bill and Ted's when they were about to flunk high school. And he was just like, well, boys, figure it out. You got to get this report done or your whole education is fucked. And that's how it was in the 80s. I mean, that is actually how on your own the average American child was in the school systems in America of the 1980s and even the 1990s. Oh, dummy, figure it out. So first thing I noted as an educator watching Bill and Ted's for the first time since being an educator of teenagers was Bill and Ted Need an IEP. 1, 2. Bill and Ted's fathers are very disturbing people. Ted's father acts like Mussolini, and Bill's father is clearly a pedophile. And it presents a difficult situation because sometimes you can see that a kid's around somebody who's like an adult in their life that's like, I wouldn't pass my child off to this adult, but that's their parent. You can't prove anything. Like I met many creepy parents, and I could never say like, oh, little Johnny, let's call the police because his parents are weird. You can't do that. It was very hard for me to see Bill and Ted's fathers. Like, where were their moms? Why were both of their moms just gone? What's going on there? And then the third thing I observed about Bill and Ted's, from a teacher perspective, was that, they cheated. They cheated. Their final presentation was a fucking cheat. It was bullshit. You can't just... how is it fair to the other students that George Carlin gave these two stoners, and also that's a weird thing that's never mentioned in the film. So they're clearly stoners, or else they're really cognitively behind. They're clearly stoners. They never mentioned this in the film, though, because it probably couldn't get back past the censors, right? So it's never mentioned that Bill and Ted are stoners, so we just have to suspend our disbelief and believe that they're actually intelligent, but remarkable. They don't even know who George Washington is. Caesar Augustus is. They're like seniors in high school and they don't know who George Washington is. So then George Carlin shows up and gives them a fucking lightning-powered telephone booth to the past, and they get to just go through the past and pick up different figures for their report and then bring them, torment them. Socrates in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure acts like he has, at best, a pretty raging case of dementia. Like, they're frightened. Napoleon is terrified. I don't care. Socrates is freaking out. Napoleon's freaking out. But all they do is for their quote unquote presentation, quote unquote report, is they just like say, and next up is Socrates. And then Socrates comes stumbling out, and he looks like he's like in the throes of dementia, and he's looking around, he's all freaked out, and the teachers are all impressed. Nobody's asking, like, who are these random adults that the two biggest burnouts in school just brought into the amphitheater or the gymnasium? We had an amphitheater on the mountain, outdoor amphitheater. Not as fancy as it sounds, but it was pretty cool. Nobody asks any of the clearly most essential questions of that situation, and nobody says, no, Bill and Ted, you have to do this work yourself. You can't just travel through time in a phone booth and, kidnap. They kidnap people and then bring them into... It's kind of a dark movie when you think about it. In short, I watched Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure for the first time as an adult who has long been a teacher of teenagers, and I discovered 3 primary things. 1, Bill and Ted need an IEP and they need to stop smoking dope. Teenagers should not be smoking dope. I am pro-cannabis. I am anti-children using cannabis. 2, what's up with their dads? I don't like this situation on either end at all. I think we need to send in DCFS to investigate. Maybe we'll send them through a lightning-powered time machine to investigate what the fuck was going on in Bill and Ted's home with their creep-ass dads. 3, I think it is plagiarism of a weird... It's like time travel plagiarism. Some crazy guy comes and gives you an actual time machine. You just go back in time and collect from history all these individuals that you're supposed to be learning about on your own, and then you just make them play the drums in the gymnasium in front of your peers. F-, and I'm concerned.
Yeah, everything I do gonna be funky.